Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Trusted Systems with CPS and restorVault. My name is Kimberly, and I will be your moderator for today. Before I introduce our speakers, let's quickly run through the GoToMeeting UI. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box, not the chat box, the question box, in your GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I'll be monitoring them during the presentation, and we're going to allow plenty of time for questions at the end. Also, the presentation looks best in full screen, so you'll want to enable that by clicking the full screen option. Finally, we'll be recording the webinar and posting it to our website, so you can share it with colleagues or view it again, and yes, we will send you an email with a link when we do that. Expect it around Friday or Monday. Our presenters are Jesse Charforos and Greg Heim. Jesse is the founder and general manager of restorVault. He has over 25 years in the computer storage industry working for EMC and NetApp. He then founded RestorWare in 2004 to build business continuity infrastructure for Fortune 500 companies. And in 2017, he founded restorVault. Greg Heim, and you all know Greg, is a Senior Vice President of Complete Paperless Solutions. Many of you have already worked with Greg and know his decades of experience in envisioning, implementing, and training on Laserfiche solutions with an emphasis on ease of use and innovative automation of business processes. The CPS partners with clients, helping them develop solutions to balance service excellence with efficient operations. And finally, this webinar is sponsored by our hardware partner, Canon. So, Trusted Systems, why do you care? As we all expect, California leads the way in defining the way local agencies maintain official records in electronic format, ensuring that they are both reliable and trustworthy. I like to use this as my shorthand for the standard. Essentially, records need to be true, accurate, and reliable. California recommends that electronic records must be maintained in a trusted system as documented in AIM's recommended practices. From a compliance perspective, we're referring to California Government Code, or as everyone knows it, CGC, Section 12168.7 Part C. From a functional perspective, trusted systems must prevent unauthorized alterations. The four components of a trusted system are: 1, an amalgamation of media, hardware, and software storage that mitigates unauthorized alterations. That's probably the most important. 2, the system is verifiable via independent auditing processes. 3, agencies are required to keep 2 copies of the system. At least one needs to be copied to a separate and safe location. And 4, documented policies and procedures for the handling and management of records. So they're the 4 components of a trusted system, and now I'm going to pass off the webinar to Greg.
Oh, thank you, Kimberly. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Jesse right now, and we're going to have him do just a little bit of explanation about restorVault. So, Jesse, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
So who's restorVault? I'm sure a number of you are asking. restorVault is a trusted system cloud storage provider with data virtualization technologies that can help reduce the cost of trusted system storage as well as any high-value unstructured data storage by 80%. Our solution provides a superior protection, ultra-fast recovery, and on-demand access. We are virtual cloud storage. So what does that mean to you? How does that help you guys? How can restorVault enable trusted systems compliance and reduce the cost of storage? And that's what we're going to show you today. So first off, this is typically how Laserfiche environments are set up. They're going to be set up with primary storage, and then you're going to be sitting on a Windows file server. That's where all your repositories are going to be. that Windows file server is typically unprotected storage. And if you're making a copy with Veeam or some other ghosting software for DR, for training, for dev, for QA, you're also putting that data on unprotected storage. All the files are vulnerable, both at the primary as well as in the cloud. And all of of that data, most of it, 80%, over 80% of it is inactive, especially in a compliance data environment, where you may have data that you have to maintain for long periods of time, in some cases forever. And then if you get hit by ransomware, if you're attacked by ransomware, the recovery times could be days or weeks, even from a local backup. So with restorVault, what we do is we copy that data into a trusted system storage environment, and it's a redundant in the cloud. That trusted system storage environment is impervious to ransomware. It's sitting on object storage, not on a file system. And then with virtual data files, which we'll describe today and show you how it works, it can free up the 80% of storage that is taken up by inactive data. And then also with virtual data, we can recover access to your data, to your Laserfiche data, in minutes versus days or weeks. And we're going to actually show you that, a demonstration of that with Laserfiche today. So what is trusted systems? What is compliant cloud storage? First off, when you create your Laserfiche environment, you're going to be, in most cases, you've got a Laserfiche SQL database that handles metadata data from your repository data files. But all of the data files are sitting on a Windows file system, which is basically an unprotected storage. And it's the file system that is vulnerable to ransomware attacks, to corruption, to having someone with administrative rights of being able to make changes to files and delete files. So that's where we say the files are unprotected. And if you're only using that type of storage, then you don't have a trusted systems environment. So with restorVault, what we bring is a worm storage environment in the cloud. It's impervious to ransomware. It's immutable storage, which means that you can't make any changes to the data once the data is written to our repository. When we ingest files from your file server, we hash the files so that we can compare the data, the source data, with the data that we're writing into the worm storage to make sure that the data is exact. We fingerprint, timestamp, and then we audit those files periodically to make sure that none of the files have changed over time. And then with virtual data files, we can actually restore access to those files that remain in the vault and are protected back onto a file server. Also, there's no file system. It's object storage that we're writing into, which is impervious to ransomware. It can't be attacked by ransomware because there's no file system to attack. Let's talk a little bit about retention. restorVault supports three types of retention. There's guaranteed retention. So there are files within the compliance environment that you have to keep forever, or possibly for 30 years, or whatever that length of time, we can guarantee the retention of that data with restorVault. There's also flexible retention, which will allow us to shorten a specific policy for retention to allow you to delete or dispose of files once you need it, once you need to be disposed of. And then finally, hybrid retention, where we actually can do both a guaranteed environment, and this would be something similar to like what we would use for backup instead of compliance data, but for backup, where there's like a 90-day retention period for your backup data, and then we can flexibly move that forward or backwards to allow disposition of data that has been deleted over a time frame. And now I'm going to turn it over to Greg for now to start our demonstration.
All right. Well, thank you, Jesse. That is awesome. I am so happy to see this cloud worm. You have no idea. As far as compliancy is concerned, and as far as Laserfiche is concerned, it is definitely an awesome, awesome utility. Now, my job today is going to be to draw a picture of how Laserfiche and how we store and process documents in Laserfiche, how it relates to the storage and retention, and what Jesse just gave you an overview of on the restorVault side. So I'm going to be brief, very quick, and so hopefully I'll be able to paint a decent picture here. So what we have on the screen right now is the Laserfiche client, okay? I'm going to point out just a couple of things, and as we go through it, I'm going to further define what a Laserfiche volume is, because that's kind of where our focus is on top of the retention information. So I have in my folder here, I'm in my copy machine folder in my quality assurance area, I have a few documents, and I'd like you to take note that they're in this volume called 2021. Now, a volume is nothing more than a physical pointer to where your tangible files are stored on the back end, on the server, on the storage device, on the NAS device, on the SAN device, any storage device on your network, okay, to include restorVault, which is what we're going to take a closer look at, okay? So right now, our documents are sitting in this volume called 2021. They need to be processed. I'm going to go ahead and process a couple of documents really quick just so we can talk about the different aspects, okay? So first I'm going to pull up my city records template, and I'm going to choose department. We'll go with, I got to find something permanent here, public safety, investigations, and let's see here. I remember something, this one here, destruction of guns. This is a permanent record. You'll notice that as I'm going through these documents here that my retention information is changing. This is the state of California's retention schedule that's built into Laserfiche. Now, I'm going to choose a record that has a permanent retention, and I'm going to say OK to this, okay? And this is this document on the right-hand side here. Now, you notice that this document is being picked up by workflow, and it's going to be processed, and it's going to be moved out, okay? Now, I'm going to process one more document, and we're going to take a look at this Accord, and I'm going to go ahead and add some metadata to it. This is not a permanent record. This one has what we call a retention cycle built to it. And this particular document is going to be destroyed, or it's going to have what we call a disposition assigned to it from the retention schedule. So legal legislative, let's go to proof of insurance, right? And this particular document is expired +5, okay? Now, let me put a document date in for this document. Let me put a document date in for our sample 7, because without the document date, it cannot move. It's the most important thing for retention, okay? Let me put that in there. And you'll notice that has moved. Now, let's go take a look at those. So our first document was put into public safety, right? It was put into investigations, destruction of guns, 2021, and here it is. Now, what I'd like you to take note is this document has been marked as read-only. It's been flagged as permanent, as a permanent record. See this watermark in the top. And then lastly, if we look at the volume information, you notice that this volume is no longer in the 2021 volume. It is now in a volume called permanent, okay? Take a mental note of that. We're going to come back and talk about that in just a second. Let's take a look at our second document scenario. That one was for administration, legal legislative. That was a proof of insurance, and again, 2021. And let's see here, today is the 31st, so this is our document here, okay? Now take note that this document is not marked as read-only. You'll notice that this has a watermark in the top left corner that says it's waiting to be reviewed, because this has a disposition assigned to it, or this has a retention cycle. The disposition is that this is going to be expired, and then once it's expired, it's going to be held for 5 years. Then it's going to be destroyed, okay? This is scenario number 2. Now, this is waiting to be reviewed, so this has to have an event date assigned to it, right, so that the disposition will come into play. So I'm going to go ahead and put in an event date. So let's just pretend that this insurance expired today, right? So I'm going to put that event date in, close it, and the changes will be saved for that document. You'll notice it didn't go anywhere, but you also would notice that the volume has changed from 2021 to DP, for disposition pending, okay? And that means now that it's been marked as read-only. It's been flagged as the disposition is now pending, okay? And then the destruction date has been automatically calculated based on that E plus 5, expired plus 5, plus the event date that I put in. It calculated it out to be 2026. Now, let's do some quick searches here. All of these things that are flagged have the needs to be reviewed. They have the permanent record, or whatever. If it's a frozen document, they're all flagged that way. Now, let's take a look at the Laserfiche administration console real quick, because like I said, our focus today is going to be on that volume. So we started in the 2021 volume, and then one document moved to the permanent volume, and another document moved to this DP volume, meaning disposition pending. These are documents that are going to be purged from the system eventually. Now on the back end, if we take a look, now what I have on the screen right now is the Laserfiche administration console. Now inside of here, I can go to our volume manager, and this actually shows all of the volumes that I have configured in Laserfiche, and the physical pointers are the path to where these documents are located, okay? And when I say the physical path, I mean actually in Windows. Now this is my computer, or Windows Explorer, on the left-hand side, and this is my Laserfiche repository. It's got LFGRMS, and that's for Greg's Records Management System, okay? Now, you'll notice that there's a folder for each one of these volumes in this area, except for the DP volume and the permanent volume, okay? Now, all of these documents that are in this LF Greg RMS folder, you'll notice it's marked with a restorVault icon. It's being backed up and monitored by restorVault, okay? Now, this is a regular daily backup, right? Just things that are to be backed up and can be restored in a matter of minutes, and we're going to show you that in a second. Now, the other two volumes that we were talking about were the DP volume, right, which is listed right here, and it's under C Laserfiche Data Retention, as you can see, and then the permanent volume. Now, these are all tangible volumes. There are physical files in these directories, okay? Now, these particular folders also have the restorVault icon associated with them. They are being monitored. The DP, I'm not going to steal your thunder, Jesse. The DP has a specific set of guaranteed retention assigned to it. So does the permanent volume. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse and have him explain and show you how these files on the back end are managed, monitored, and restored. And we're going to show you some real-time disaster recovery using Laserfiche in the process. So, Jesse, I still got you with me?
Yep, I'm right here.
All right, go ahead and take over.
Okay, so one of the things that Greg is showing you is this is a volume, the permanent volume. We're gonna be dealing with the permanent volume. The permanent volume has if we do properties on it, I think it's got around 3 terabytes, 3-point-something terabytes of data.
Oh, it's got gigabytes in there.
Gigabytes. It's got 2.63 gigabytes of data. On disk, it represents 2.72 gigabytes of data as stored. representing 48,000 over 40, almost 49,000 files within the permanent volume. VP also has another set of data, but we're going to be working with the permanent volume today. So what we're going to do is Craig is going to mimic a ransomware attack. And to do that, before we do that, let's go back to Laserfiche.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I get you. And you know what? Let me pull up all the permanent permanent records here. I'll do a search for that. That's quick and easy. I got this window open here. All right. So as you can see, all of these are in the permanent volume, Jesse. Mm-hmm. Right. And as you can see, we can see all of these documents. Okay.
Exactly. So so what we're going to do right now is we are going to minimize this. And that data is being pulled up from the local file system in permanent. What we're going to do with permanent is we are going to simulate a ransomware attack. We are going to rename the permanent volume to permanent.local or permanent.ransomware. Okay? So now, by renaming that, now when Greg goes back into Laserfiche and search again, you can still see the data there as far as the metadata within the database, but now the page, there is no image. We don't have an image. The data has been attacked. You probably are going to have a ransomware attack icon on your server saying that these files have been attacked by ransomware, pay the ransom, and those types of things. Okay, so let's simulate real quickly a recovery. So this data is backed up on restorVault. And restorVault, we can open up a Strion Explorer, which is restorVault Recovery Explorer tab. We go in, we're gonna recover GSH is Greg's server. We're backing up a number of CPS servers, desktop and Laserfiche is two separate servers. But we're going to restore Craig's server. We're going to go to the Laserfiche data. We're going to go to retention, and we're going to go to permanent. As you can see, permanent is here. So what we will do is we're going to restore virtual file, shortcut, to the original location. And that is something, it's 48,000 files. So we restore probably about 800 files a second, so it should take a couple of minutes to get this done. But just to show that simulation, we're going to let that run for a second. Hang on one second. Oh, it's not going to let me move that. So as you can see, permanent has already been created, and let's see how many files have actually been brought back there. Oh, can't cancel that. It's still going. Cancel.
So Jesse, I noticed on that properties that there was 0 bytes. I mean, I can see that. It's got 400 meg. Right? If you go back to properties on permanent, I was just curious. So if you go, and I see that you've got, all those files coming in and getting restored, but I'm probably stealing your thunder. There's nothing on disk.
Yes. So what's happening here is we are restoring all virtual files. And if we went into, and it's still running right now, but if you went into the permanent directory, you would see actual files. So this ID file is it's still an ID file, so it looks and feels exactly like the original file, but it's a virtual file that's a pointer to the data that's actually stored and protected in restorVault. So let's look at it again. It's still running.
So my original volume was actually on my disk, but you're restoring a shortcut. So there's so I don't have anything on disk anymore. I'm stealing your thunder again. I'm sorry. Bye.
No, not at all. So essentially what we're doing is we're restoring all the files, and the files will retain all of the original properties of the file. If it was a TIFF file, if it was a PDF, if it was an Excel spreadsheet, if it was whatever the file is, it will retain that same property. And so when you actually go to look at that file, it will open up the application that generated that file. But that file will be pulled down from restorVault on demand. So we're about halfway through this. They cancel. I'm going to go ahead and show this again. It's still running. And as you can see, it's generating all of these files in the background. We're just about halfway through.
Hey, Jess, do you mind if I go back to Laserfiche real quick? I want to just take a look because I know how Laserfiche works from a back-end perspective. So, say for example, you're 75% through, right? If it's already there, it's already started its recovery. So as I go through this, I should be able to see everything that's been restored up to this point, and the ones that are still waiting to be restored on the back end will still come up. But what's cool, I'm just blown away, Jesse. What's cool about this is that now I can see all of these as they are coming in.
So this data, by the way, Greg and our viewers, this is all coming off of restorVault. This is data that's no longer sitting on the server. It's actually coming from restorVault real time.
Look how fast they're loading.
Yeah, I mean this is literally utilizing restorVault as a drive, and all of this data is protected. It's going to be because we hash the data and we compare it. None of this data this data is exact copies of the original files. Let's see where we are real quickly before you go any further, Craig. Hang on one second. I want to see where we are here. It's still going, so one more time.
No, you guys might think that that's a fake reaction, but we didn't actually do that in rehearsal.
Yeah. So this is actually real time downloading, and you can actually use all that data that's already been recovered. So close to almost. When did we start this? We started this about 4 or 5 minutes ago. So
about 4 minutes ago.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
4 minutes to 50,000 files from the cloud. This is recovering.
There it is.
Proof of
It's
concepts
done.
for our clients. We do things real time.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I'm going to go, and right now you have been completely restored. So let's go ahead and minimize this. If I go back and I compare permanent again, and now, as you can see, permanent is completely restored, but you have 0 space on disk. So what does that mean for us? First off, it means for our customers is that we can restore from a ransomware attack in minutes, not days or weeks, and this is minutes from the cloud, not days or weeks from local backup, but minutes from the cloud, okay? The other thing is this data is all on demand, and we have the capability to actually virtualize data that's inactive. So if you think about it, even though there is 3 gigabytes of almost 3 gigabytes of data, we can actually reduce that footprint, that storage footprint on your server by virtualizing data. And as you can see, even with virtualized data, you still get almost local speeds for actually viewing. And the reason is because you're not pulling down a bunch of files to review a single file. You're pulling down each file that you actually select in Laserfiche, and those files are a couple of K, and so it's going to be very fast to actually bring those files back down. And so with restorVault, we can actually reduce the amount of storage that you have on your server that's at risk of being attacked by ransomware, while providing you trusted systems compliant storage in the cloud and on-demand access for any data that you want to pull down. So with that, I think that was our demo, and I'll turn it back over to Greg and Kimberly.
Wow, I'm genuinely impressed. Kimberly, would you've got, once you summarize this for us.
Yeah, can you pull up the...
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh.
So in summary, yeah, the next one. Thank you. I just want you to remember that the main point of having a trusted system is to make sure you have at least one copy in electronic media that doesn't permit any changes and is at a safe location. And it is no longer okay to burn to disk and hide them in a box under your bed at home. I actually know an IT director that used to do that. Implemented a trusted system brings you into compliance with CGC 12168.7 Part C. And, you have three options in terms of implementations. You've got guaranteed retention, flexible retention, and hybrid guaranteed and flexible retention. And nobody else does that with the trigger dispositions. So, and with that said, it looks like we have questions, guys, which is great. We love questions. Okay, I have to put on my question reading glasses. Ooh, more. Go ahead, guys. Assault us with the questions. How were the templates set up to move files when the templates were applied? Greg, I think they're trying to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. So let me pull up Laserfiche real quick. So I have a workflow that's running in the background that is keying off of this retention schedule. And basically, when it keys off the retention schedule and moves a document, based on the retention, my workflow knows whether it has a disposition or whether it's permanent record. And it migrates it automatically on the back end to a predefined volume that is monitored by restorVault.
Okay, this is a Jesse question. Jesse, I thought TIFF files were not subject to ransomware. Is that not true?
Pardon me?
I thought TIFF files were not subject to ransomware. Is that not true?
That's not true.
In other words, that's not true. Okay.
So any file, ransomware attacks file systems, and typically the files that are the file systems that are attacked are file systems that have either group shares, like your home directories and things like that, and as well as in the case of most ECM enterprise content management systems like Laserfiche, their repositories are sitting on a file system on a volume. So anything within that volume that the ransomware sees, it will attack. It will try to encrypt. And it doesn't
so
matter.
Anything on a file system, Jesse?
Yep, anything on a Windows file system is typically going to be attacked. What ransomware typically doesn't attack are databases, because databases are locked. They're harder to if you try to manipulate a database like a SQL database outside of the database system, it's going to say you can't do that because it's locked by SQL. All these other files, they're locked by the operating system, but ransomware circumvents the operating system and typically will go in as an administrative account and basically encrypt those files for you. And that's what ransomware attacks. So it doesn't matter the type of file that it's going to attack. It matters more where the file resides. And if it's on a Windows file system, it's typically there. It's going to look for something to attack. Okay. Okay,
Jesse, you're still up.
Okay.
I was told a trusted system requires data to be written to optical media. Is that not really a requirement?
That is no longer a requirement. Optical media is what we call worm storage. It's a write once, read many media. It's similar to what microfiche was. When microfiche, you would actually take a microfiche copy of the document, and you take that microfiche only once, but you can look at it many, many times. the backend storage that we are using is actually certified as worm storage. It's been certified by both the federal and state governments as being able to comply with a worm storage environment, okay? Which means that with software and with hardware, that's the key, that you cannot manipulate the data that we write in our object storage infrastructure. The other thing is we are writing to object storage. Okay, so there is no file system on our storage platform, which means that it can't be attacked by ransomware like you could a file system.
Okay, this is a Greg, I believe. Should we have set up our Laserfiche system with multiple volumes by year and permanent like shown? So I think they're asking for best practices in terms of how you set up the file system.
Yeah, no, you know, and a lot of this stuff, so if you think about annual, that's low-hanging fruit is what I call it. So annual retention is cool because you have a current audit year, or if you have a calendar year documents, then it's nice to be able to put them into a year volume. And that once that year has passed, or that audit year has passed, you can destroy or purge the entire volume of information as well. And so the rest of it, you know, I like to write workflows, and I like workflow to determine based on council-approved retention what should be done with the documents so that we have that uniformity and that we have, you know, documents stored not only on the front end in the folders and managed and monitored, but also on the back end in specific locations. Now, just to tag on to that question, for retention, is it okay to put it in a year folder? Yeah, I would. I do it all the time. You notice on mine I had 2010 all the way through 2021. Another scenario would also be to create separation between certain document types for different security reasons on the back end. Would be another reason to migrate to separate volumes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. This is another one for Jesse. Once restored, since we only see shortcuts, does it no longer meet the trusted system requirement of housing the data in two locations?
Actually, when you move to restorVault, there are two locations that we actually make two copies of your data on worm storage within restorVault. We have multiple data centers that have copies of your data. Okay, so if one data center goes down, you still have access to the other data center. So that we give you that redundancy already. Basically what's happening is the requirement for trusted systems is that the data is sitting on immutable storage, and that is like the person that asked the CD-ROM, that's immutable storage. restorVault is immutable storage. We cannot change anything on that system unless it's actually approved by the application that actually wrote it. And so one of the key things that restorVault provides is what's called a client-triggered expiration. And so what that means is that you can actually expire data on your file server or on your Laserfiche server, but that data doesn't get actually expired, that will trigger an expiration on restorVault, but then there is a delay before we actually would dispose of that file to allow you to go back and audit it or pull back an expiration or extend an expiration. And so from a standpoint of data sitting on the server, if the data is actually a shortcut, which is what you're asking, we have two copies of it. And so you are still a trusted system because there are two copies of that data. Even though the shortcut is no longer a copy of the data, it's pointing to the two copies of the data. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Let me know via the question box if it does not. Okay, next question. What does restorVault do with documents that are deleted because they've completed their retention schedules?
So essentially what I was leading to that.
Right.
Answer. So we integrate with your ECM environment to allow the ECM software and specific users. So a Laserfiche user, or let's say that you have multiple departments. There are specific departments, users within the department that can delete finance data. So someone from finance, the data steward in finance is the person that allows expiration and disposition of specific finance data, or someone in contracts, or someone in HR, or someone. Each of those departments has a specific person that does the auditing for the compliance data for that department. If they approve through Laserfiche the expiration of that data, then restorVault actually sees that and says, oh, okay, Kimberly, who is approved, and Laserfiche expired this file. We now say that that file on the restorVault side is available to be disposed of. But then we give that file anywhere from 14 to 30 days of, and it could be longer. It could be once or twice a year that you are going to dispose of files. But the file has already been expired. It is now a candidate for disposition, but we haven't disposed of it until it's been approved finally and audited by the users. Okay, so once the disposition happens through Laserfiche and by an approved user, that's the only time we will start the clock for disposition on restorVault. Let's say that somebody else comes in outside of Laserfiche, an administrator that has access to the file system because they're an administrator. They own a local file system. If they go in and delete a file from Laserfiche's repository that we have protected with restorVault, we're going to look at that and we're going to say, oh, that file was deleted or was deleted by an unknown user. To us, it's an unknown user, and it wasn't deleted by Laserfiche. And so that file will not be expired on the restorVault side of things. So that protects you from accidental or malicious deletion of files that are on our trusted system and managed by Laserfiche.
So the documents, Jesse, are basically once they're triggered, they're still held before they're actually deleted for a wait time, so to speak. But they can't be touched or anything like that. They're triggered for disposition, and then they're disposed of by only a specific user after a certain amount of time. But I think the original question was too, not only are they disposed of, but are they wiped? They just poof, they're gone. There's no media that has to be destroyed. It's just wiped off of the object storage device. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's correct. Actually zeroed out on the worm storage. And we have specific administrative systems on the restorVault back end that are approved by the compliance regulatory compliance agencies that will allow us to delete that data.
Thank you.
Okay. One more question, it looks like. If anybody else has any other questions, please use the question box. Jesse, how can someone, how does one start to do this? How exactly does someone move their compliance data to the cloud with restorVault?
So that's the really cool thing. Basically the restorVault installs an agent on your Laserfiche repository server. So if you've got a Windows server that's running your Laserfiche, like with Greg, we install an agent on that server. It's a native Windows agent. So it's basically watching the folders that have your repository data in it. That installation takes anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on depending on how we prep the data and where the data is actually stored and how the volumes have been set up on the Laserfiche server. So once we install that agent does a zero-level dump and grabs everything within the volumes that we're watching and moves all of that data, copies all of that data to two copies on restorVault in the cloud. After that, we are basically running a nightly watch that will actually go in and pick up any new data. And so once we've ingested all of your level 0, your first copy, everything after that is just new data that we're picking up. And then so it's a very simple implementation. We typically do it over a Zoom call, and once it's set up, it's literally, there is no difference. You don't see any difference from the current Laserfiche environment to it being on a trusted system, but now you are on trusted systems. And we've done this for multiple cities and agencies, state agencies in California. We've got a couple of water districts, sanitation districts, and a number of municipalities that are actually using restorVault for trusted systems in a Laserfiche environment. And we'd be happy to give you some references, and you can talk to some of the end users. The demo that we just showed you for the recovery, we typically what we do is we go in, after we've done the ingestion, we actually will do a recovery for our users and show them that this actually is working. And then from a optimization standpoint, we can set up policies that will basically look at your environment and say, okay, anything over a year, I want to virtualize. So I can save that storage and reduce the amount of storage I have on this server, reduce the amount of files that are actually can be attacked by ransomware and those types of things. So it's very simple to set up the restorVault environment. We can do it in like I said, typically it's between 15 minutes and an hour of time on the server. And once we've done it, it's basically a set it and forget it type of thing for your trusted systems environment.
Yeah, Jesse, it sounds like you're setting up best practices for them during the demonstration process. Would that be true?
That's correct. That's correct.
Sounded to me like it was a wrong code of restorVault.
Yeah.
Let's set it and forget it. Are we going to get in trouble for that one? The wrong code of restorVault.
Yeah, nobody on this webinar tell. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, and a big thank you to our audience. We appreciate you being here. And one more reminder, we're recording this webinar and we'll be posting it on our website, cps247.com, by the end of the week. And I'll email out a link to everybody who registered. And also be sure to check out all of the articles, videos, and Ask the Experts content. Thanks again for making time for us today, and we will see you all on the next webinar.